In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this is Joe, my husband.
Hello.
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 You all right?
I'm feeling a bit dazed and confused. I feel like I've had a cold, not slept particularly well, and spent the whole weekend in the attic.
That's what's happened.
I know.
And I've got a really you know when your throat feels like it's swollen, and so you're kind of having to swallow past like a ping pong ball or something.
Nice.
I have a hurty throat. So there you go.
Awesome.
This episode is brought to you by an empty glass in Joe's case.
Yeah, it's not often I've drunk the drink before we start.
And cranberry juice in my case.
Mm.
Chin chin.
Cheers.
Mm.
What are we talking about today?
Right, today. Right then. Well, several things I think. Because I've been... You know how we're both listening to a lot of podcasts at the moment, aren't we?
Yes.
Because they're awesome. There's so many good podcasts out there.
Much better than this one.
I don't really know what to say to that.
No, nowhere near as good as this one.
Well, some of them are way better than this one, but not all of them, as you implied.
Not all of them.
No,
some of them are dreadful.
In fact, somebody emailed me the other day to say how much he enjoys our podcast and my book and all the rest of it, and how I'm like ranking up there with the marketing greats like Bill Glazer and Dan Kennedy, which had me in stitches because it's patently not true. But it was such a lovely email to receive.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, crazy person on the internet.
So yeah, that was that really. Anyway, yeah, this week we're listening to a lot of podcasts, aren't we?
I'm listening to a lot of podcasts in my car because I have a car with like Bluetooth and stuff now.
Yep, and I listen to a podcast every time I drive myself anywhere, which isn't that often, but like I go to Hereford 2 or 3 times a week to my pole class, and I go to Simmons Yacht to my gymnastics class, and I'm always listening to a podcast and avoiding wild boar.
Wild boar.
Very exciting.
Not a wolf.
Not a wolf. No. Anyway, that's a different story for a different day. But yes, podcast. And so I have been listening over the last couple of days to the Cracked podcast, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And the Cracked podcast is spelt cracked, as you would expect it to be spelt. And they just talk about, they just talk about stuff, don't they? So quite often it's kind of sciencey based, but it's not a scientific podcast. It's just interesting things, interesting topics that they will kind of come up with and talk about. And the one that has caught my attention that I've been listening to for the last few days has been all about drugs.
Right.
And it's absolutely fascinating because our drugs laws are completely batty.
Yes, war against drugs doesn't work.
It's just moronic. It's this is probably going to turn into a little bit of a political rant for a moment, but it really, really winds me up because the way we deal with drugs as a society in this country and in the Western world particularly, and probably in America is a good example as well, is just fucking stupid. It is. It panders to the Daily Mail reading, non-thinking section of society who have just live in this kind of black and white world of drugs are bad, but also, drinking 3 glasses of wine a night with their meal because of the hypocrisy.
It's perfectly fine. I nearly said, hi, Daily Mail readers, but
none of them will be listening
to this
podcast. Anyway, this is a really fascinating podcast because they were talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which, is suffered by many soldiers and people who have been attacked or had traumatic, stuff happen to them.
Yes.
And they have found that one of the best treatments for PTSD is MDMA. We're having like an acronym-based podcast here. MDMA is
commonly referred to
as ecstasy.
Yes.
I can't remember what it stands for.
Lots of very long words.
Yeah.
With acid at the end.
Yeah. And also, it tends to have there's MDA and MDMA, and MDMA has methamphetamine in it, or amphetamines in it.
What?
Amphetamines.
MDMA?
Yeah, has amphetamines in it.
Does it?
Yeah, so it's quite speedy. So a lot of people don't like it because it's not really a very pure. Anyway, the point is,
hang on. MDMA is actually a chemical compound. It doesn't. It's not an amphetamine, is it?
Well, it has an amphetamine. That's why it's quite speedy.
I'm not sure.
They had a dude on the podcast and he was saying that this is the case. That's why a lot of people prefer MDA, because it doesn't have that kind of speedy kind of racing.
Maybe the A is amphetamine, not acid. I don't know.
Or maybe it is. Anyway, but they treat people with it, and it was basically a podcast about psychedelics. And how the guy who runs the podcast has taken a lot of psychedelics in his time and is now completely sober because he had bad experiences and got a little too dependent on it and all the rest of it. But then there's, two of the blokes he was talking to take psychedelics a lot for research, for creativity, for all sorts of reasons, and they are perfectly fine with it. So, it very much depends on what type of a person you are, I think, and how you use it and all the rest of it. But they were talking about psychedelics and why they've been banned, which is usually for cultural and political reasons. So Nixon banned loads of psychedelics because he didn't like the type of people who were taking them. So if you think back to the 60s, it was, the hippies, and so that's why marijuana was banned.
Yeah, they weren't going out and getting jobs and doing sensible, responsible corporate things, were they?
They were dodging the draft.
They were counterculture.
Yeah. And then there was... And also it's really linked to race and class as well. So if you think that cocaine and crack are basically the same thing, it's just the method of delivery that's slightly different. And cocaine is kind of like rich white guys, snorting off hookers in toilets or whatever. Probably not all of those three things at the same time, actually. That would be gross. Anyway, I've drifted off into a land of hell. But crack is predominantly taken by poor black people.
Right.
And that's why crack is now like the worst thing in the world and cocaine isn't. And it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. The way that it's all classified is bullshit as well. Anyway, they were talking about psychedelics and how they've been used to treat PTSD, because MDMA, specifically ecstasy, has the wonderful quality of just making you really kind of open, and it makes you love everybody and everything. And it's that's what it does. So it's kind of an altered state of reality. And it's not a psychedelic in the sense that you would think that LSD is. You don't necessarily see kind of shiny shapes and, Jesus with a fiery sword coming out of his mouth, which is where John got the image of Revelations from. Because, did you know, I'm going slightly up on a tangent here, but this is too good to miss.
This is fungus that grew on wheat.
No.
Oh.
No, because it was John of Patmos that wrote Revelations.
Right.
Patmos is an island in the Aegean.
Right.
Or a Greek island. Don't know if it's in the Aegean. Anyway, it's a Greek island. And the next door island has magic mushrooms growing on it.
Okay.
And so, one of the typical kind of trips that you would have from mushrooms is you might see something like Jesus with a fiery sword coming out of his mouth.
Seven-headed dragons and stuff.
Seven-headed dragons and that kind of shit. So that's just, next time some Bible thumper gives you some nonsense about...
There was a different theory about a psychotropic fungus that grows on bags of wheat.
Yes, what's it called?
I want to say ergot.
Ergot, yes, that's it. It's ergot. Well, that may well have been because Exodus bears a lot of resemblances to some of the scenes from Revelations. And Exodus was written at a different time by different people, well, by many different people.
And they were dragging food around deserts.
Yeah, dragging food around deserts and getting off their tits.
Yeah.
So there you go. But PTSD, they're finding that MDMA is a really good treatment for it. Not just like giving people drugs and telling them to go party.
Right.
But they're kind of giving it to them in the context of having therapy with people because it makes them open up and talk about their experiences. Which is what you need. Which is exactly what you need, because they've done studies and looked at soldiers who have served together in wars, and they both like, two soldiers might have both seen the same horrific thing, like their friend got blown up and died, and that is the primary cause of PTSD in soldiers, apparently, is seeing someone that you love die in a horrible way, which is perfectly understandable. And they'll study these people afterwards. They'll kind of, watch them when they're home and stuff. And one of the soldiers will be fine. He'll kind of go on with his life and he'll be fine. And the other soldier will have PTSD. And the only difference is that the one who is fine will go and he'll talk about it to people. He'll talk about his experiences. He'll write about it. But he will get it out there. Whereas the one who suffers from PTSD will bury it. And then it comes back and, you can't bury shit like that.
Okay. So making them get a bit smashed and talk to someone is actually very good for them.
Yeah. And the reason I get so frustrated with our ridiculous drugs laws is because they prevent that kind of research being done openly. And, you know, how many people could be helped by that kind of thing? This is not about, you know, giving people a packet of pills and telling them to go clubbing. You know, although, you know, I think people should be able to do that if they want to, if they're grown-ups. But yeah, it's just really interesting. And people have used psychedelics throughout the ages to kind of, you know, aid creativity and just...
Well, that's it. I mean, there's some stuff that's culturally unacceptable, which is, you know, your gin and your tobacco and all that sort of stuff, and stuff that's culturally unacceptable. But in other places it might be. It's crackers.
Entirely arbitrary. And we're probably going to get letters for this. You know what? Good. Write me letters. I love letters.
What the hell are we talking about today?
So today we're talking about that part because I wanted to get people thinking about different perspectives on things. I'm not telling you to go and take drugs.
And alter your perspective with chemicals.
No, but there are other ways to do that. So meditation will have the same effect. So if you want to learn how to meditate, that can induce this kind of, you know, altered state of reality. So that's, you know, that's a good thing to do as well.
I had a chili in the pub over the road a couple of days ago that was so hot I pretty much hallucinated.
Human bread jerk chicken.
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeepers. Oof, jerk chicken. We did a thing a couple of years ago. My niece and her fella came over for dinner, and we did a jerk chicken, and the recipe starts out in a really frightening manner by saying, take 6 Scotch bonnets and blend with 1/4 pint of white vinegar. And you just think, oh, Jesus, this is going to be brutal.
And I looked at that, I was like, I'm not putting 6 Scotch bonnets in anything that's going anywhere near my face.
So we just went 4.
3, I think it was.
3, was it?
Yeah.
Ugh. It's brutal.
Man.
It's just pain. Bottled pain.
No, it didn't kill the flavour like some things can. The flavour was still there. It was very flavoursome, but it was endurance food. And we had to go out and buy more milk.
Oh, man. Jesus.
So, yeah.
We're sitting there in the garden, hallucinating away, sweating, trying to eat this food.
It was exciting. We haven't had it since.
No.
Well, I'm vegetarian now anyway, so, again.
That's it. Jerk something else. Vegetables. Jerk vegetables.
That's... This...
Peppers. Jerk... Oh, I don't know. Move on.
Dig that hole. Anyway, what I actually kind of... As well as that, kind of getting people to think about things differently. And remember, I'm not telling you to go out and take anything illicit at all. That's entirely up to you. You're a grown-up. But I wanted to talk about hostage negotiation techniques.
Okay, that's a swerve.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It might be that they're trying to negotiate.
You mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, actually.
I did, because it's all about persuasion, because that is what I am in the business of doing. It's what you're in the business of doing, and it's what everybody who's listening is in the business of doing. In business.
Taking hostages.
No. I hope not.
Oh, right. Shoot. What?
Persuading.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so, you know, if
I was thinking like robbing banks and...
No, don't do that.
Booby trapping the front door and stuff.
Well, you booby trap your front door if you want. I suppose it's your front door, but don't rob people. That's bad.
Okay.
But yeah, persuasion. Everybody who runs a business is in the business of persuasion because you have to persuade people to buy your stuff. But more than that, anybody who interacts with other people ever is in the business of persuasion because there comes a point at some point where we all want to persuade somebody to do something.
Even if it's for their own good.
Even if it's for their own good.
Especially if it's for their own good.
Especially if it's for their own good. Particularly if it's for my good.
Okay.
But yeah, so I wanted to talk a bit about hostage negotiation because essentially hostage negotiation is getting people to change their minds.
Mm-hmm. Let the people go.
Yeah.
Don't blow up the bank.
Step away from the big berm.
Yes.
So yeah, there's oh, you've completely derailed my train of
persuading people, change their minds.
Yeah.
Come on now, stay with it.
Okay, so when you're thinking about persuading somebody to do something, most people start from entirely the wrong place. So there's like 5 steps to persuading people to do something or to change their minds or whatever. And most people start at step number 4, which is influence. Most people start from I want, you know,
I think you should do this.
I think you should do this, and this is why. And that's entirely the wrong place to start from. And that's why most marketing is shit. Because that's where most marketing starts from. It starts from...
I've got a thing. You should buy it.
Exactly. Well, which is essentially what most people, you know, what most businesses do. It might be sometimes a little more sophisticated than that, but quite often it's no more sophisticated than that.
Buy my shit.
Yeah. Apple have kind of got to the point where they can just go, we've got a new iPhone, do you want it? And everyone goes, yes! But we're not Apple.
No.
And nor are you. Unless Apple are listening, in which case that would be awesome.
Hi. I was going to say Bill then, but that's Bill Gates. That's a completely wrong company. Oof.
Get out. Anyway, after that clanger. So, stage one. Stage one of the FBI's hostage negotiation and stage one of your marketing persuasion should always start with listening to people. And not just listening, but active listening.
Tell me the difference between listening and active listening, because it sounds a bit counsellor.
It can be a little bit counsellor, but let me give you an example of what most people do when they're listening. Most people's version of listening is simply being quiet and waiting for their turn to speak.
Right.
That's not really listening. I mean, it kind of is because you're not interrupting them, so, I suppose technically it could be counted as listening. That's what most people are doing in a conversation. It's
waiting for their turn.
Yeah, just waiting for their turn. It's very, very rare that you meet somebody, and you will know when you meet somebody like this because it's so rare and because they make you feel so special. It's very rare that you meet somebody who's kind of actively listening to you and is genuinely interested in what you have to say. Okay. And as I say, when you meet that person, you'll know it. Why Joe is now making a duck face at me. And I'm not sure why.
No, I was nodding.
You were duck facing at me.
Here comes Noodle.
So active listening. I kind of want to give people a few tips about how to do active listening because I don't think most people really know.
Okay.
So, yeah, the basics are just listen to what they say. Don't interrupt and don't disagree with people. Don't evaluate what they're saying. Just shut the fuck up and listen. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is to kind of acknowledge what people are saying. So, nod your head, make that kind of thing. So that's
basically my job on this podcast, isn't it? Just sort of nod and agree.
That's not true. That's not true. Everybody listens to it for you. And without being awkward, this is quite a skill and one that needs to be practiced because you can sound like a bit of a weirdo. But repeating back the gist of what they've said from your frame of reference, so kind of saying what they've said in different words.
So you mean saying what they said, but using different words?
That was a really, really poor example of doing that.
Those were in fact the same words.
Those were in fact the same words, yeah, okay. Apart from one. So yeah, you can, after somebody's finished speaking, you can sum up what they're saying, basically.
Okay, so sum up what they're saying.
I am so going to slap you. And yeah, another basic of active listening is ask questions that show you've been paying attention.
Okay, so what sort of questions should I be asking?
Well, Joe, I'm glad you asked me that.
Oh, God.
But I know that's really cheesy, but that is a good and very simple example of what you can do. So if somebody's telling you a story, even if it's just as simple as that's fascinating. Tell me more about, X, Y, Z, whatever. Tell me more about the unicycling clown that you encountered on your way to the canal. I have not been taking psychedelics. I am quite tired and have a sore throat though. So, okay, so here you go.
Right, good.
Yeah, so that's kind of active listening is the very first place to start. And the reason we do that in marketing is because one of the biggest mistakes that we all make is that we assume that we know our customers really well.
So are you relating the active listening to the sort of sorting out your customer avatar and working out who they are and what they want and what their problems are and all that sort of stuff? Is that active listening in marketing?
Yeah, it kind of is, because you can do some of that on your own by just kind of extrapolating from what you know already. But the best way to do it is to talk to your current customers. If you have current customers, talk to them, ask them questions, listen to them, ask them what their problems are, and just sit and shut up and listen. Is one of the best uses of your time that you can do. And if you haven't got any customers, go and talk to people. All sorts of people. Ask them what their problem is and relate it to the business idea or whatever that you've got, or the product idea, but ask them what problems they're having and what they might be interested in to solve those problems, that kind of thing. Okay. Ask them all about themselves. Find out about them as people as well, because that's just as important as the problems that they're having, with whatever socks they're trying to buy or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that's socks. I've been looking at socks today.
Really? You've been cold, haven't you?
Yeah. So yeah, you see, if you sell socks, you need to find cold people.
Find people
Who live in cold houses.
Who live in 17th century houses, 16th century houses.
With no curtains.
With no curtains.
And who are renovating.
No insulation.
No double glazing.
Big holes in the house. Mm-hmm. Those are the people who will buy socks off you.
Yeah, if somebody had emailed me today and said, I've got fluffy penguin socks, I would have been like, I'm all over that. And you would have come home to a house full of penguin socks. I do like socks.
Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. So yeah, that's stage 1. We're getting close to the end of the podcast, so I'm just going to quickly run through the other stages, and then maybe we'll come back to them in other weeks. Probably not next week and the week after, because we like to mix it up a bit.
Okay.
I like the way you say okay like it's a plan, not like we forget what we're going to do next week.
Well, I quite like this one. This is good. This is good stuff.
It is good stuff, and it's really interesting as well. It's all psychology, and people's brains are fascinating.
Oh, listening to an awesome podcast about Nietzsche at the moment. Really good.
Really?
Really good.
You have to send it to me.
I will.
Cool. And then I can talk about it.
You can.
In my emails. And ting. So yeah, active listening is stage 1. Empathy is stage 2. And I think that's far too big a topic to discuss in, a minute and a half. So we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Because that's, all about walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. And maybe we could play you a bit of a song that I found about that.
Jesus, really? We're going there?
I don't know. I don't know if we're... I'm going to have to find out, because the Cracked podcast plays music all the time.
I think there's with the radio, there's something to do with, like, as long as you play less than 30 seconds, you don't have to pay royalties or something.
Oh, I will investigate this so that we don't get arrested.
Well, as long as our listener doesn't report us, we'll be all right.
We have more than one listener, Joe.
Hi, Vegard.
Hi, Vegard. Oh, you and Vegard. You got a little bromance going. Yeah, he was asking about you.
Yeah.
In Cork, yeah. He's really excited that you're coming in December.
Cool.
Anyway, so stage 1 is active listening. That should be the basis of any kind of persuasion you ever want to do, and really it's just a good way to learn stuff. Listen to people. You'd be surprised at how interesting a lot of people are. Not all. Stage 2 is empathy. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Stage 3 is rapport. Building relationships. This is what I do. This is what we're doing with this podcast.
Building a relationship with our listener.
Hi, Vegard. And then stage 4 is influence, and that's where most people dive in. Yeah. And that's why most people are really turned off by marketing and advertising. Because you don't meet somebody and then say, let's go for some sex. You meet somebody and say, hi, would you like to go for a cup of coffee?
Well, you listen to them. You find out all about them, and you
get to know them.
Yeah.
Find out what they care about. Build a relationship. Then invite them back for something.
Then go for the sex. Yeah.
And finally, you go for behavioural change, which is what married people do to each other.
If only that wasn't a joke.
People do try and change each other, though.
Yeah. I don't try and change you.
That's not true. You get really cross when I leave half a job done. I only do that because I've got, ADHD. So yeah, just to recap, psychedelics are awesome. Our drugs policy is bullshit. Don't take drugs unless you want to, because you're a grown-up, but I'm certainly not advocating it. Try meditation to open your mind. If you want to negotiate with somebody and persuade them to do stuff, don't start with influence, because nobody gives a shit at this point and you just come across as a twat.
Start with listening.
Start with listening, active listening. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Active listening, that's the key.
Okay.
And then empathy, rapport, influence, and behavioural change. And we'll talk more about those.
I feel like we might have skipped over the final 4 steps there.
Well, you don't want to give away the farm when we're, on the podcast. Got to keep the goodies back for, my inner circle.
Some random future point.
Possibly. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is I think this is going to be a good series of podcasts if we can kind of stay focused on it and not get distracted by cheese or something. We should do a podcast on cheese at some point.
We should do a podcast on cheese.
So yeah, active listening. Right, okay, so what's my event?
The event?
Oh man, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be cool.
It's going to be cool. I was talking to my buddy Mark today. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
And
a listener.
Yeah, and I was telling him I was really nervous, and he was just like, don't be ridiculous, it's going to be amazing. And I was just like, okay. Oh my gosh, and tomorrow, what am I doing tomorrow? I'm having a fucking photo shoot.
Photo shoot of doom.
Thanks, that makes me feel great. Because because I hate photographs of myself because I have what Joe calls my photo face, which basically means I look like a demented 1950s housewife who's high on amphetamines.
Amphetamines and Valium, I reckon.
Yeah, combination. So I'm like both highly strung and spaced out.
Yeah.
Which is not a good place to be, and that's exactly what I look like. I look like I'm in not a good place because I'm not in a good place because somebody's taking a photo of me. And I know what I'm going to look like because it's like a vicious circle. So anyway, a listener and stroke long-time reader of my emails got in touch and asked me if he could come and take photos of me. So he's turning up with a makeup artist. No, that sounds really dodgy, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
And
Who is this man? What does he want?
It's totally not dodgy, because I was talking about how I hate photographs of myself, and he was just like, oh, I like working with people to make them feel, more confident, because everybody has this problem, men included, with having their photograph taken. And he's bringing a makeup artist with him.
Crikey.
So she's going to do my face, and I'm going to get my hair done tomorrow morning. And this is all tax deductible, by the way, people. This is a top tip for business. If you're having business photos taken and you're getting your hair done and your makeup done, get your business to bloody pay for it.
Sweet.
So we're doing that, but it's not going to be your normal stuffy kind of business photo shoot, because I am not your normal stuffy business person. It's going to be awesome.
Cool.
I'm really excited about it. It's gonna involve several of my favourite things. Not cheese, though. Probably.
No cheese.
No cheese. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing tomorrow.
Look forward to it. Look forward to seeing them.
I'm looking forward to seeing them as well. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I don't have any photographs of myself. You may have noticed that the only kind of image of me is that illustration that the wonderful Julia did for me.
Hi, Julia.
Hi, Julia. But that's great and it's wonderful, but it's not actually me, because it kind of looks like me, but it's not actually me. And so when I write articles for magazines and newspapers, they tend to want a photograph of actually me. And no matter how much I throw a tantrum, they won't accept the illustration, which I just think is frankly mean. And I don't really have any photographs on my website, and I just don't have any photographs. So I wanted to have some photographs for my business.
Cool.
But not like me sitting behind a desk and the normal corporate stuff that people have, the kind of headshots and shit.
Yeah, the kind of stuff that goes on LinkedIn where there's just...
Yeah, because it's just not
smiling
me.
face in a suit.
Yeah, because it's just not me. I'm not a suit person, so there's going to be no suits in this photo shoot. And it's going to be very much me. It's going to be capturing my personality and, the stuff that I care about and who I am. And that's really, really important, because that's going to help me massively to stand out from all of the other copywriters out there who have the corporate photographs, because that's what we're told that we need. And it's nonsense. We don't need it. We need to look like who we are.
Like the people you are.
And we need to have that personality come through. And that neatly links in to my event in November the 3rd and 4th. It's all about how to find and dig out your USP, how to pull it out, how to bring it into your marketing. And there's going to be a section on visuals as well. And included in that, I'm going to talk about photography and how you can get the best out of photographs of yourself, because it's something that fills a lot of people, especially women, with horror.
Okay.
So that's going to be part of it. So there's going to be all kinds of exercises to do. It's going to be a real hands-on workshop. It's going to be a skill building. And
this isn't people talking at the audience. This is
God, no.
Getting in and doing it.
Yeah. There's going to be a lovely dinner in the evening, which is on me. And there's going to be a bit of a fun surprise thing to do in the evening. And there's going to be a couple of nice surprises along the way as well.
Cool.
I'm only limiting it to 15 people because I don't want a massive room full. Half the tickets are gone.
Cool.
If that's all that come, then that's fine, because the people who are there will get more from it. But it would be nice to have a couple more people. So if you would like a ticket, go to businessforsuperheroes.com/events/who-r-u.
Cool. Sounds good.
And we'll be back next week, won't we, Joe?
We will.
So be good. And if you can't be good, don't get caught. And go persuade somebody to do something. Or at least listen to them.
Sweet. See ya. Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues. Tell your friends. Send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.